Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least 2 people are killed in the latest anti-government protests in Kenya. The victims are shot dead in the city of Kisumu as police try to disperse rallies. Also, the Nigerian town of Bosso is repeatedly hit by raids from Nigerian Boko Haram insurgents. Soldiers have been battling to maintain control of the border town. We hear from our correspondent in Abuja. And the charms of everyday life is the secret to success for Nigerian gamers hoping to take advantage of the opportunity the growing sector has to offer. We meet some of the designers making sure that customers see themselves reflected in the online stories. Well, first, anti-government protests in Kenya have once again descended into violence. 2 people were reportedly shot dead on Monday as police opened fire to disperse rallies in Kisumu, the country's 3rd biggest city. Now, Kenya's opposition alliance has been holding demonstrations every Monday since late April. They are calling for the dissolution of the Electoral Commission ahead of next year's presidential elections.
Burning tires and setting up roadblocks, hundreds of Kenyans took to the streets in the western town of Kisumu to demand the resignation of the IEBC, the country's independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. After a tense standoff, police fired shots and used water cannons to disperse the crowds. At least 2 people were killed and several others brought to hospital with bullet wounds. The IEBC has been accused of being pro-government, and the opposition says its members must resign before next year's presidential elections.
The present IEBC is not the body that can be able to oversee a successful election in this country. Even if the results are true and correct, if the same IEBC announces it, it will not be accepted by anybody.
Protests also took place in several other towns, including the capital, Nairobi, where opposition leader Raila Odinga led a relatively peaceful march on the IEBC headquarters. His CORD party has been staging weekly protests against the electoral body since April, and a meeting last week between Odinga and President Kenyatta failed to diffuse tensions.
We demand that there should be a dialogue between the CORD party and the Jubilee coalition. If that works, if that can happen, we will be very delighted, because the government will not achieve anything anyway by standing off.
Kenya's last 2 presidential elections in 2007 and 2013 were highly contested and marred by violence. Both times Raila Odinga was defeated, but the opposition leader says he intends to run again next year.
A British man denies responsibility for the death of a Kenyan woman at his home in Nairobi over the weekend. Grace Wangenki was reportedly killed when she was holding a gun whilst taking selfies, and it went off. Richard Alden claims that the victim was his friend and was helping him move when she died. Charges have not yet been filed, but Alden's being held by police in connection to a possible murder investigation. 5 African Union peacekeepers in Somalia have been arrested for selling military supplies. The contraband reportedly included fuel, sandbags, and improvised detonators. The troops were detained following a joint operation between the AMISOM mission and Somali police. AMISOM has not released the nationality of the arrested soldiers, but has slammed their alleged misconduct as selfish and vowed to root out the practice from its ranks. The Nigerian government is denying that Nigerian Boko Haram insurgents managed to retake the southeastern town of Bosso in an overnight attack. Extremists first took Bosso on Friday in a raid in which 30 Nigerian soldiers and 2 from Nigeria were killed. The community was wrested back by the army on Saturday morning, but further clashes between Islamist fighters and soldiers broke out on Sunday night. Now, Chika Odua joins us with more to bring us up to date. Chika, so the fighting on Friday was the deadliest Boko Haram assault that Niger suffered in a year. Bosso's clearly being hit hard, but we're hearing conflicting reports as to who was left holding the town come Monday. What more can you tell us? Chika? Oh, we seem to have lost Chika. Hopefully she'll be able to join us a little bit later on. But moving on, 3 African women feature in the latest list of the world's 100 most powerful women released by top business magazine Forbes on Monday. Now, the roundup is pulled together considering net worth, media presence, influence and impact in their field and outside of it. Based on that, the highest ranking African woman on the list is Nigeria's Folorunso Alakija, who comes in at number 80. Now, she's the vice chair of oil exploration company Famfa Oil, and her first company was an influential fashion label popular with her country's elite ladies. Well, then we have at number 83, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the president of Liberia. She's coming to the end of her 10 years leading the country and has been credited for some of the fragile but very important gains made in Liberia in the wake of its civil war, and has received a Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts. Now, the last African lady to make it into the 100 is Amina Gurib Fakim at number 96. The biodiversity scientist is the president of Mauritius and was asked to step into the role after having worked hard to advance awareness of global warming. So a very warm congratulations to all the 100 ladies on the list. But since this is Eye on Africa, with particular regard to the 3 hailing from the continent. Well, before we go, we turn once more to Nigeria, where the sale of games for tablets and smartphones are booming. Young entrepreneurs and games designers are eager to take advantage of the opportunities that the growing sector has to offer. Now, the secret to success for many is ensuring that the theme of the games reflect everyday life in Africa's most populous nation. Rosie Collier and Moise Gumi report from Lagos.
Everyday life on the streets of Africa's most populous city has inspired a wealth of content for a pioneering generation of mobile gaming developers. Chop Up's most successful game, Mama Poot, features a street vendor.
We try to look for inspiration from the things that people live and experience every day. For instance, our first game was based on these buses right behind me. They're called Danfos, and they provide or they facilitate 80 to 90% of commercial transport in Lagos.
Chop Up has a team of developers who code games aimed at a local market. They rely on mobile phone operators to promote their games. Across the city, a team meeting is underway at Comic Republic. These artists draw their inspiration from traditional African belief systems.
One of our major visions is to put Africa's best foot forward. Because, a lot of Western image of Africa is of the bad sides. We talk about the wars we keep having, we talk about, the downside of stuff, but there are a lot of positives. And we're taking these positives and we're translating them into comics.
Nigeria's younger generation is growing up with superheroes who look and talk like them.
So to return to one of our top stories, the clashes between soldiers and Islamist extremists in the Nigerian border town of Bosso. We've seen back and forth violence in the community over the weekend, and Chika Odua joins us with more to bring us up to date as to what the situation is on Monday. Now, Chika, as I was saying earlier, we saw fighting on Friday, which was the deadliest Boko Haram assault that Niger has seen in a year. The community is clearly under assault over the last couple of days, and it's not been clear as we went to air exactly who was left holding the town. So what is the latest that you can tell us? What's your understanding of the situation?
There's still some back and forth on this, but the people I've spoken to, the actual residents of the town, including the mayor, says that Boko Haram has actually reclaimed this territory. The Nigerian military is saying otherwise. However, they have not put out any official statement, whether that's on social media or via press release. They're not saying anything. But we are hearing on ground that this town of Bosso has been reclaimed. That's according to the mayor of this town. So it does seem as if Boko Haram is putting a full offensive on this territory. We're also hearing that there may be more attacks happening in the next few days or so.
So Boko Haram is under pressure from the Nigerian military in its native Nigeria. Could this be behind the increasing cross-border attacks that has perhaps resulted in this increased concentration on Bosso in Niger?
Exactly. One of the reasons we understand that they're hitting so hard on Niger is because Niger has taken a very hard stance against Boko Haram. We understand that actually the Nigerian government has actually said that they will try and prosecute Boko Haram members and bring them to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for prosecution. They're saying we cannot handle them. We'll just send them to the powers that be. So this news is also part of the agitation that Boko Haram is feeling, according to security analysts, the potential to be actually held at the ICC. And of course, that is a court with a huge international legal standing. Another thing that we're hearing on ground is that Boko Haram is actually planning more attacks, not just in Nigeria, but the entire Lake Chad region. Even other parts of Africa are also saying that they're planning hearing more Islamic attacks to happen in the next few days as Muslims around the world celebrate and observe the Ramadan holiday period. So everyone is on edge here in Nigeria.
Thanks very much, Chika Odua, there for us in Abuja. Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. That's where we're going to have to leave it. Thanks very much for joining us. And please do so again if you can. Take care.